Welcome back to Wash Talk, the Car Wash Podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Rich DiPaolo, and joining me today, we have Greg Kerr, owner of Alchemy Merch. Greg, it's so nice to meet you, and thanks for taking some time to join me today.
I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, for sure. So, operators in the car wash market, Greg, it's one of their favorite topics to discuss, marketing their business, right? They obviously want to understand marketing, what's the most effective, and a lot of times they're trying to, especially these days as costs are elevated, a lot of businesses are being squeezed. So they want to improve their marketing, and oftentimes they're doing it while trying to navigate budget challenges, right? So I wanted to get you on the program today, Greg, to help our audience understand how they can have the biggest impact with sometimes a limited budget here. So first, why don't we start off with learning a little bit about your history and background, Greg? Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got started at Alchemy Merch?
Sure. I've been making custom merchandise and self-employed for about 20 years. First started off, I was touring in a small rock band. We were all broke, and I created these custom belt buckles that we would sell for our band, and that was my way I made money. You know, we made our per diem was basically $15 a day when I was 21, so I could get away with it. But I had bills to pay, so I started doing that, and then started working with other bands and people that started seeing them, and kind of fell into a business originally. And then did that for years, and then I started a custom apparel brand, and I ran that for about 10 years, and then started offering, initially making enamel pins, like metal lapel pins, for independent artists, primarily, and brands. And then that expanded. Now with Alchemy Merch, we have a ton of different custom products that we make. We focus more on typically what would be considered like a retail quality merch, as opposed to promotional products, because promotional products can tend to be thought of as giveaways. They might be cheaper, and the products that we're doing are 100% custom. Instead of take a logo, slap it on a pre-existing bottle, we can do all over printing, control all the aspects of it, do those things. And we work with a lot of large brands, a lot of licensed properties, still ton of bands and independent artists, and we just like helping people create things with more intention.
Sounds good. Yeah, quality matters. And I think you said $15 per diem per day. At that age, that might have netted me a few beers back then if I had that per diem. But it's one thing for these operators who have been in this market for a long time and have a long track record of success, right, in this market. But car wash market, I'm not sure how familiar you are with it, Greg, but it's typically a low barrier of entry to get into the market and start it, as long as you have a high enough pile of cash, right? So what are these new entrepreneurs that are coming into the market and they're just starting out? Maybe they don't have an established business. What are some common marketing challenges that new entrepreneurs face when they're just starting out?
I think one of the main things I see a lot is people just blindly throw money into marketing because I should run some ads, I should do this, I should do that. And I think taking a little bit more time to really focus in on exactly who your customer base is. And obviously with a car wash, especially if you have a single location, you can hyper-focus within a certain radius. You know, you don't want to accidentally be paying for your ad to showing to people in New York if you're located in Kentucky. And you can control the age ranges. You can also, with things, if you're doing ads on Facebook/Instagram, you can sort by how much money somebody's income. So if you have a hand, like more of a hand wash and dry car, like higher end sort of car washes that you're doing, well, maybe you might want to focus some of your budget specifically towards somebody that might have the kind of car that it will be more interested or look for that. On top of that, it's just, I think there's certain things, getting a bunch of flyers and kind of canvassing the neighborhoods. There's all the kind of old things of getting boots on the ground and try and get out there. But another thing I think that can then really help somebody stand out is getting a proper logo and getting proper branding established, because whether that's the color palette, all these things, coming up with the brand's messaging, like what is your differentiator? Why should people care about this car wash versus another one? A brand or a company that's going to have some kind of cohesion to all their messaging, to their imagery, and a strong image instead of something slapped together that, their cousin's brother, somebody put together in Microsoft Word, is just going to, come together, and they can come out of the gate with a little bit of I think, a stronger presence and something that could be more memorable. At the same point, I've been dealing with custom art and things like this for such a long time. I'm going to tend to notice stronger branding and pick up on that and see kind of what's behind that. But from what we've seen, regardless of like what field that you're in, if you have a strong messaging, consistent messaging, and a strong brand look to you, everything that you're doing, those tend to be the people that rise to the top over time.
I'm old enough, Greg, to when I remember when Twitter first came out and Facebook and businesses were trying to figure out how to use these channels, to the best of their ability. It was a bit of a learning process as they went, trial and error. So, now that these channels have been on the market for a decade or plus, a lot of these, it's often a first step that's many small business owners take because it's relatively cheap, right? I know there's some paid campaigns and things like that, but how much should a company look, how much should they consider in their budget to use towards boosting their social media presence, and what are the best practices that you share with companies looking to boost their social media in general?
It's always tough because social media, the algorithm is constantly changing, and even with dealing with a bunch of independent artists, there's always, now Instagram's changed the algorithm. Nobody's seeing my post, or Twitter, X, whatever is going on. And it's important to go grab all of your handles with your business name. It's also important to go and try and get some kind of consistency with that, because it can be challenging. You go to get a certain name and that's available on one platform, but not another, but kind of try and find one that actually works and makes sense, and at least capture those as a early step, so that you have them. But it's stuff, like tweeting and things like that. For me, and we try and tell a lot of the clients that we work with, it's good to also just create a good old email list, because that's going direct to your customer's inbox. And there's a lot of things that have changed that makes it harder. Things filter to spam. And we can talk about some of those things that have shifted. But no matter what algorithm is happening, if I send an email, a weekly email about a sale that's going on or some special, come in and do this, do that. If somebody's got a loyalty program, I'm sure that's got to be pretty big within the car wash world. Doing these things and sending out, a weekly email or something is going to go direct to your customer. If you post on social media and you're not paying for it, maybe you get a couple percentage of the people that follow you are actually going to see it. It's a necessity to still do those things. But for us, even having it on Instagram and things like that, we get clients and people from that, and we repost other people's work. But outside of us running specific ads on those platforms, I don't feel like we're getting a ton of business personally from that. With us, it's still a lot of word of mouth. Obviously, depending on when we have a good experience somewhere, especially going to a physical location, something like a car wash, if I have a good experience or something happens, the chance I'm going to tell a friend is much higher. And when I forget the exact statistics on it, but the average person that has a negative experience will tell 10 people, but somebody having a good experience, if they even tell anybody, it's much lower. But still trying to focus on creating the customer experience, doing this thing, some kind of consistency to posting. We barely even use our Twitter. A lot of our clients just kind of aren't on there in the same capacity, or they're, in these different little groups and following things. And it's really hard to stand out. And all of those platforms are geared towards wanting to get you to pay. I mean, they even make you pay to have everybody that follows you actually see a post. And that is really challenging. So personally, I don't find relying incredibly heavy on those to be a good, sustainable long-term kind of thing. It's good to build it, and it's fun depending on how you want to do your social media. Maybe you can make funny interactive videos, or you can do things that are going to be engaging, because no matter what local business I'm following, if they're just constantly posting a flyer, some little image or something there's no reason to engage me in that.
Right, right. So from what I'm hearing is you're maybe use it as an extension to support your brand, and make it a fun brand, or make it, whatever your image you're trying to build, and have X or these social media platforms support that message, but maybe not use them as your primary source of marketing, right? And I'm also hearing a common theme as you're talking, Greg, and what I'm hearing you say is you want to be strategic, and you could be pinpoint and strategic with your marketing. It's no longer a spray and pray type method.
Right.
It's you don't know who's following you on social media, but if you can get a customer's information when they come on your site, you know exactly who you're sending that marketing message to. So sounds good. So outside of social media, is there any other way small businesses can maximize their marketing efforts with limited resources that you can think of?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is most of us, we're technically a small business. All of us have limited resources in however you want to look at that. And we have to factor in, where is our advertising spend going to be? And we also try and do a yearly budget or figure something out and try and stick to that plan. Because if my budget is $5,000 a month for marketing, or whether that's $300, how am I going to make that work? And obviously in the beginning, you're going to have a really tight budget with it, and just trying to figure out, where am I going to get the most value for that? And there are tons of things that you can do on your website to capture somebody's email, and you can offer a coupon or something like that. Basically, it's like, sign up for our email list and here's a $10 off coupon code, or whatever. There's ways to kind of capture these people that are coming in. And again, with a local market, again, it's tough to do a huge umbrella thing, because it depends on how the business is positioning themselves, right? Like, don't want to say, oh, just make a bunch of funny videos. But if you're really, going towards like detailing and clean, some kind of a separate kind of sect of people, because that probably isn't going to be perceived by that crowd. So, and I would imagine with car washes, it is more of trying to capture as many possible people within that local area as you can. Yeah, I mean, even doing little handout things that you can give to your clients. Like I said, I think a loyalty program for something like that. I know personally a local car wash that we have here, I pay some monthly subscription fee basically, and we have our little barcode that they gave us. And anytime, even if I just need to go vacuum my car, even though there's a vacuum I can plug in the garage, I'll go do that and kind of get it cleaned. And that keeps me coming back to that single location, because for me, the idea of switching almost seems more painful. The process, it's like, hey, this place is close to me. It's on a side of the road that's easy for me to get into and go. Yeah, I mean, there's little things, obviously I would imagine within your industry, everybody does the air fresheners and things like that. I imagine there's a certain extent that's a staple item, but maybe there's other little things you can do, like a little keychain or something. I'm trying to think, like, I don't know how many people are going to want to wear a t-shirt with the name of the car wash on their shirt. But if you do want to do something like that, then putting in some time into the design and really being intentional and making a little bit more fun, and thinking, whatever you're creating or whatever you're spending on, thinking, are they going to use this? Because if not, there's no value.
Right. The point is for them to use it so that word of mouth, replicates and ripples throughout the community. And that's a cool shirt, I want to go get one. Or that's a cool hat, I'd like to go get one. Or, whatever piece of merchandise. So, and this is all changing from traditional marketing to new marketing, as we've been talking for the last couple of decades here. Obviously, those laws change, right? New internet privacy laws, and a lot of car washes are practicing, using SMS, text message marketing and all that stuff. But they also want to obviously respect customers' time and privacy. So how can businesses ensure that their digital marketing campaigns are reaching their target audience, especially with these new privacy laws that they're contending with?
It's tough. I know even recently we have an integration with our CRM that uses Twilio and for sending out text messages, and we do it for updates that are happening in production. So if it changes from this status to this status at the factory, somebody can opt in for that. Well, it's my personal approach because I don't like getting a ton of random messages, and we all get a million spam calls and texts and things like that. We offer somebody to opt in to that option. But I know it's Twilio. I don't remember if it was them or our email marketing. We recently had to go through and do, I think it's like a DMARC certification. I think it was Twilio, which is like an anti-spoofing kind of thing that you can add. And it's a process. And I understand some of these things, but as a small business, when you get this thing and there's kind of a guide, but you still had to have technical knowledge of how to go into the back end of your website and add these like certain records to it, which is tough. And those are the things like Google's cracking down as well. Like I said, I know we use Klaviyo, I think, for our email and Twilio for SMS. And it's like they keep changing the rules and it's challenging and it's tough to keep up to date with those things, because if you don't, Google and all these people are saying, well, we're basically going to filter you into spam by default, whether somebody signed up for your email list or not. So I think Google made us set up, it might've been Google made us set up a separate kind of email or something that's like, oh, this is coming from this at our domain, and not our email provider would send something under one of their emails as us. And there's a lot of like constant changing things because with privacy laws. So it is important to look into those things and what certifications are needed. Google and these companies will tell you what it is, but like I said, it can be really challenging. Like I know how to add a different records, an A record or TXT record to my backend website, but the average person who hasn't gone through that has no idea, and they'll say, oh, copy paste this, do this and that. But if you don't have experience doing that, it's really tough.
Yeah.
So unfortunately that is going to be a little bit of an uphill climb to try and get some help probably, but it is necessary because within the past 6 months, I think we've had 3 or 4 different platforms that we use force some kind of different certification, essentially saying, which I appreciate, at the same point saying, yes, this is coming from us. But we tend to choose, like, let people opt in, on our website. If somebody buys something, they're automatically signed up for the email list. We have them opt in, they can opt into those things. That's just because of my personal feelings on privacy and not wanting to get overloaded. And we all have that. Right. And I also don't want customers to check out with that fake email that they don't actually use. That's only for their promotional. If they buy something online, they use an email they never use for something. I try and avoid. I don't want people to do that. We also, with my business, we need to communicate with them about their order as well. So it's somebody gives I don't want to say fake email, but that random email they don't use, that's an issue for us. So we personally try and do things that we're not over spamming. We're not selling kind of a retail service in a sense of a car wash where you probably do need some kind of regular scheduled email blast or push out to your clients that you can do maybe, and I don't know the statistics of like what are the busiest days. I imagine the weekends, but figuring out when you could do that on some kind of regular schedule, because if you're sending out on a Thursday, anticipating then that gives people time to plan, oh yeah, I should go get my car washed this weekend.
Yep.
Whatever day that is, some kind of consistency. I mean, I can't think of a single brand that I want to get a text or an email from on a daily basis.
I can't either.
Not interacting. Like a clothing store, it's crazy. If you go online, I'd buy from, Macy's or some kind of large brand online.
Right.
Where there's an email every other day, or like Peloton. I don't need an email every day from you.
It's too much. Yeah.
And then just becomes fatigue where I actually don't pay attention to any of it.
Well, you'll unsubscribe.
Yeah.
You'll get frustrated and fed up and be like, okay, enough, and I'll unsubscribe. But as we're on this topic of technology, Greg, have you seen any advances in AI either in your company or the companies that you work with? How are small to medium sized businesses, maybe with a limited budget, able to use the power of the AI to maybe save on some resources?
Yeah, it's right within our industry because we're dealing with artists. AI is just one of the dirtiest words that's currently out there right now, just because of all the images and things that people are doing. It's causing a big stir. But on the side of using something like a Chat GPT or things like that, I think can get used to help maybe if you write some copy for an ad that you're trying to do or for your website or things like that. I will use it if I write a guest article or something like that. I'll run it through and basically say, fix my grammatical errors and change it all to, a certain tense. And it'll do things like that. But still, we're at a point right now where there's a million kind of SaaS companies and marketing companies that say, oh, integrate this AI, for your marketing. And it's all the same. It's starting to kind of all look the exact same. So for me, anytime we're using AI, for me, it's in a writing sense. You still have to edit it afterwards and go through and double it because, they'll put a semicolon or there's certain words that basically, that AI and ChatGPT love to use that gets this, okay, there's the exact same thing I've seen a million times. So I think it can be a helpful tool to help you get more concise with things that you're doing. Again, for me, that's with messaging and things like that. And we're writing articles or doing stuff or content on the website to help get another perspective or see something or fix, because I tend to be a conversational typer as well. So it's probably not the best way of saying things. I don't know, the AI image generation, I'm not personally a fan of. That would be a whole nother hour-long conversation about. So I don't personally find that to be incredibly useful at this point, but AI is getting integrated into everything. The CRM we use now has some AI integrations for things. None of them make any sense for what we need, but we use Shopify as our back-end platform. And there's AI photo touch-up, and there's AI content writing, and all these different things. So it's getting integrated in such a huge way. And even if you watch the Apple event that was this past week, they're trying to integrate it more into daily life, daily use. And I think there can be some good uses, but I'm personally not sold yet on relying on it for anything. And I do think it needs you need to check it, you need to revise it after you use it. But there, all these different integrations, again, in Photoshop, these art programs we use, they're adding in generative fills and things, which can be helpful if somebody sent something not the right size. We need to fill in an area. It'll read the information in the image and then fill in the areas with what should be there. And it's pretty decent, but, I wouldn't go out and if you're a new car wash or something and decide to make all of your artwork or things like that based off of that. There's still...
At least not yet, right? Yeah, at least not yet. I understand what you're saying. Maybe, like you said, at least for the writing component, to develop some marketing copy, like you use X and Facebook, use it as a support, but maybe not solely focus and use it 100%. What gets me excited, I was actually at the car wash show a couple of months ago, and somebody did a presentation on how fast AI is advancing, and they did bring up the image generation, the AI image generation. Just having spent 20 years in the publishing industry, I sat in the audience and got giddy because the fact that you can just have an image created without having to rely on stock photography, or, we don't own the images. We can't just grab an image off the website and publish it, right? We don't have the ownership of it. But if I could generate an image, certainly if I'm still doing this publishing thing in the future and those images look better, definitely some strong possibilities out there. But yeah, to your point, it's way too early. Let's see where this AI thing goes, and let's see how useful it can get as it evolves and develops a little bit more, right, Greg? So you've put up with my questions here for a long time, and we finally get to the point where maybe it's interlinked a little bit. We're talking specifically about merch, right? It's right, the name Alchemy Merch. So what are the most powerful custom merchandise items, and how can they play a role in cost effectively marketing a car wash or detailing business? Seems like we mentioned it before. If you're wearing a piece of apparel, it's good marketing for your brand. It helps with word of mouth, and it might even inspire somebody else to want to. What can you tell us about the best practices when looking at branded merch from your experience?
Sure. Like I was kind of saying before, not everybody outside of your employees wants to wear just the logo. And this goes for all, this isn't just about car washes. This is pretty much anything, unless you're specifically an apparel brand. Most people, or Nike or something, most people don't want to be wearing just that. So I think I'm a big proponent of feeling like, get more intentional with your design. Come up with something fun. Maybe at some of the kinds of companies that do a good job, generally with this might be your local kind of somewhat indie restaurant, that has a certain vibe and a feel. And if they've got shirts and things, they might have a saying or something. Your local wine bar might have, just looking at examples, or a local brewery or something. These people tend to do a good job of kind of hooking in some of their clientele, and looking at examples of that might be local to you, say, or when you're out really paying attention, and if you see a company shirt that's for a local company, what is good about that? What works? What's going to make somebody wear it? I'm also a person, if you're going to make a t-shirt, you can buy the cheapest Gildan possible and get it for, I don't know what the cost nowadays, maybe $8 a shirt, whatever it is. You could spend $1.50 more per shirt and get a comfortable shirt somebody actually would wear. Because I've gotten a bunch of junky shirts before, and it just never gets worn. So if it's in a drawer, or I use it as a rag, that hasn't really done any value to my brand at all. I guess if it's a rag, it's still technically around. But I think it's important to, if you're going to do it, make a nicer quality shirt that it's going to feel good to wear as well. That's another first step to help out with things. And like I said, with what we do, I don't know how much within car washes they'll do something like a tote bag, but we've all seen the kind of classic totes that's tan or black, and it's got a one color print, and it's that basic one we all know. Well, for the same amount of money, pretty much, you can do an all over printed tote, cut custom handles, add a logo of your company on it. You can go more into full customization, but it does take intentional designing. It does take really thinking about it. And I just feel like there's more value from coming up with a plan and choosing to represent your company in a better way. Because if you also give out a cheap pen or something like that, how is that representing your brand in a positive light?
Right, and who's going to use it? I mean, the point is you want them to use this, right? You want them to use the merch that you give them. So for car wash operators, and car wash operators are great. They're always having either grand opening or special events for their customers. So I'm sure merch is something that they definitely have in their arsenal to give out to customers during those events. If operators are interested, or professional details are interested, the website's Alchemy Merch, if I'm not mistaken. Is there an email address or a phone number you'd like to give out?
Yeah, the website is alchemymerch.com, and our general email is orders@alchemymerch.com. So anybody can kind of reach out, and somebody from our team will go. And a lot of what we do, especially if somebody's not as art centric, because we deal with a lot of independent artists they deal with that all day long, is somebody will send us their art and say, hey, here's what I'm trying to do. What can I make? And we're really good at that, because really when it comes to production, every different medium has a different way of approaching it. And so if you have a logo that you want to send over, You say, hey, I'm looking for keychains. Motel keychains are kind of getting hot again right now. And well, how can I do this? What are the ways that I can do this? And we can mock things up and show you and kind of help guide, because really at the end of the day, it's kind of like, what's the intended use, right? Because that can kind of play a role in deciding what would make the most sense for somebody. Because at the same point, we don't really have any interest in just making a bunch of churn and burn things. We'd rather it be the best that it can be for you so that you can get the most value out of it at the same time.
All right, sounds good. Well, I've appreciated our conversation here today, Greg. It was great to meet you. Thank you again for taking the time to help our audience understand a little bit more how they can get the most bang for their buck, possibly on a limited budget.
All right, thanks so much for having me.